I'm thrilled to participate in another TIFF one-on-one, this time with writer-director Carolina Markowicz. It is a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Charcoal is a wonderful film. It is really interesting and it's dark, it's funny, it's tragic, it's all sorts of there were a lot of emotions I felt watching this film. I was wondering what was it that inspired Charcoal?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I'm very honored that you enjoyed the film. Well, I grew up in the countryside in a small city close to Joanópolis, the city where charcoal is based. And it always felt very weird to me, all the roles that people needed to play, and they didn't exactly fit in it, but they needed to to play a role. And like I knew people that were gay, that were married, and they couldn't be gay. They would rather be discovered as drug dealers rather than gays, and couples that were married and didn't even talk to each other. So this always amazed me in a very weird way, and I always wanted to portray about this experience that I had. Also, I met a woman at once that it was very inspirational for me, and that she lived in a house that was very far away from everything, and she was very looked very angry all the time, and her husband was always like laughing and maybe kind of drunk, let's say like that, because he seemed to be like that. And I knew that at some point someone did something that she didn't like it, and she threatened the person to death. So I this is where the idea of this family that would hide a drug dealer came for me. So I kind of mixed all these feelings that I had since I was a kid with this situation, with this woman that I know. And also it felt very necessary for me to talk about the political Brazilian situation nowadays, how violence got very normalized, and how the absurd is not absurd anymore. So I think everything was quite mixed, and you know, and how violence and this absurdity became a cycle, and that we are completely used to it. There's nothing absurd any longer, and that's how charcoal came to life.
See, that was one of the things you said something there that I thought was so fascinating about the film is that there's almost like a malaise about violence. Everybody's up in arms about other things, trying to protect themselves. But without saying how the film ends, the final shot of the film sort of hammers that home. And it seems like people just aren't concerned about it. I was wondering, what is it that, or why was that so important for you to portray, and where does that come from?
Well, because I think the violence and some ways of defending yourself, let's say like that. I don't know exactly what people think about this, has been exchanged, has been completely distorted. I don't know if this word exists in English. Does it? Like,
Distorted? Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
distorted to fill some to fill up some, let's say, some interests. So how can you tell that you will be safer arming someone? It doesn't make sense. And it's what happening worldwide, and it's what happening here in Brazil. And so you justify you can justify everything, saying it was in the name of the family and in the name of God, because there's no logic. It's just something that it is how it is because it's written in a fictional book. And so for me it enters in this place where you can justify everything but by your own interest, and it just doesn't make sense. So I wanted to create to try to raise a reflection on that as well. because I think we live in this moment that, like we have a president here in Brazil that states that he'd rather have a dead son than a gay son. So,
Yeah.
I mean, how violent, you can't get more violent than that, towards people and towards people's truth and feelings, and so I think this creates more violence. And what you said about the last scene of the film, I think it's the metaphor. It's not a metaphor. It's the image of how this boy that grew up in this violence, where everything that happens, it's violent.
Excuse me.
God bless.
Sorry. Thank you.
Of God. And also the family that can't live their own truth, like that family is not a family. They hate each other. They don't even talk to each other. This is violence also. Everything is violence, where he lives. So, how couldn't he be violent? How couldn't he perpetuate this violence? It's impossible. So I think this is pretty much what I wanted to try to do in this film.
I like that you said everything is violence. Not that because in this film it feels like that. Even I will not hear "Happy Birthday" the same way again. Um, I'm thankful my birthday is past because that cake scene is something else. Um, but you touched on something so interesting there. I think is status quo and keeping up appearances is so central in this movie because all of these things are taking place, yet everyone is pretending uh, to to keep people away. Don't. Oh no, oh my father is fine. Oh, he's napping. Oh, this. Oh, no, it's fine. You don't need to wake him. And it's like, okay. I was wondering if you could talk about that tension between the status quo and reality, and is that what you see happening in real life?
Yeah, I think this is the part where it's my feeling of my childhood and teenage times in the countryside, that you needed to pretend something, that you needed to be something that was expected. So her husband, I mean, I think they know that their husband are gays or have something, but they are still pretending that they are a family, that they go to the church, and she pretends that she needs to help the priest, that the church needs money, and they pretend they are a family. And it's a tension to pretend that you are something you are not. It's a lie. It's like it's a play. It's a play. It's a complete play, that so uh, I think that scene specifically that you said, it, we tried to create this tension because for me, for many reasons, because we don't know if she did the same with her mom, if she knows that Irene did it with her father, if she's going to speak about her husband with her, what's going on there. There's so much uh, things unsaid, because they're all taboos, and what should be real taboos, which is violence and disrespect, is not. So
Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating. And one of the scenes I thought was really interesting is early on. You mentioned the church, and the scene where she's at church. I actually I laughed out loud. I admit when he says, "Oh, she's like, well, if I earn some more money, maybe I'll give it." And he's like, "Oh, well, we're struggling financially." And you pull away immediately to this stunning building, and I thought it was hilarious. But I was wondering, in this culture and in this space, is the church, what role does the church play? Is it culturally irrelevant? Is it just there for keeping up appearances? I was just wondering why include that to you?
because I think the religion is very strong here, and the Christian religion, and also we are facing an absurd increase of the evangelic church as well. in this case it was like a Christian church, and everything we have a lot of discussions here how everything is um, justified because God wanted, in
Mm,
the name of God, because it's supposed to be like that, it is like that. So, and at the same time, this way you can justify absolutely anything, you know, like if you do good things, if you do bad things, God wanted in the name of God. And also the church profits from it, because it's the place where you go and you can hear whatever you want to hear to do the things you want to do. So I think this was very important for the film in this way, because when the main character, she goes into the church and the priest is like, oh, the family is good, and then she interprets this the way she wants, and she's fine to do whatever, you know, she wants to do. And I think this is very very strong in the countryside as well, this religious devotion, and the church almost become a theater as well, you know,
yeah,
playing fiction that at some times goes towards people's fiction, and it's a match.
yeah, yeah. And that plays out here absolutely. I just one of the things I thought was also interesting about the film, with all these things playing out in front of us, the film's called Charcoal. This is the thing we're leading with, and so much of the film, I mean, the fire is always burning, um, and takes significant roles within the storytelling. But I was wondering from your perspective why that was the most important thing to emphasize, because you know a title is the first thing that people connect with the film. What was it about charcoal that you felt was so important?
um, to be perfectly honest, the film, when I first started writing the film, it was called When My Life Was My Life. And the film had many stages of development. In the very beginning, it was a film about this organization that was specialized in replacing mafia people.
Mm,
And then there was this woman who is still in the film, who is the head of this mafia, that woman. And then it was more focused on the drug dealer who comes to Brazil. And then it became less more focused on the family and on the mother of the family, whose actions leaded everything that happened in the film. So it didn't make sense anymore to have this title, because it was related to whose life was that.
yeah,
It We wanted to create like this family, you know, this, it's like a team, it's like the mafia was the family out, kind of like that, you know. So, and charcoal is like a very predatory, it's a very predatory way of doing, of people work in very bad condition here, even in this very city, Joanópolis. There are a lot of small charcoal factories, and people work with no EPI at all, and they get really sick, very very bad, with like lung tumors, and you know, it's very very predative, it's very, you know, it's very inhuman. And also, everything that was a problem to this family became charcoal. So I thought that, you know, became ash.
yeah,
And I think charcoal, it symbolized a lot this, you know, for me, it's like something that it's predatory, and it's this cycle of violence. To do charcoal, you get the wood, I don't know the name in English, of eucalypto, this wood, and it becomes something to be burned. So it's like the burning of the burning of the burning. For me, it was very symbolical to the film.
yeah, yeah, for sure, absolutely. Well, honestly, Carolina, the film is fascinating. It's a really interesting piece. Just as we wrap up here, I was wondering what you hope audiences take away from it.
Well, my hope would be the audience, to, to to raise some kind of reflection on this cycle of violence, and what we are living nowadays, and how we are becoming immune to the absurd, that we should, you know, beware that the absurd is still absurd, that, you know, we should look at each other, and it's important for us to remember that we are humans, and and all this violence that is going on in many ways, it's not normal. And also I hope that people fall in love with my beloved cast that I love so much. I'm very proud of them, and Jean, the boy that
Yeah.
I'm very anxious for people to see them, and the boy as well, because I'm a fan of them.
They do a great job, and so does he, to highlight Jim's
He's
character.
amazing.
Yeah. Uh,
Thank you so
thank thank you so much for the time to chat. I really appreciate it, and I wish you the best at the festival. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you. I hope to see you. You live in Toronto.
I do. I do.
Oh, I hope to see you there.
Hopefully, yes, that would be great. All right, thanks
Awesome.
so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Okay, bye
Nice
bye.
to meet
Nice to meet you. Yes.
you.